Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with some more SFO Grimhammer previews. We've already checked out the quality of life changes and now we can start looking towards all the races. But once again, I need to tell you these things at the beginning of the video just so you're informed that this is going into a public beta on the 3rd of June. That's this coming Friday. And obviously everything that you're seeing on screen right now could be subject to change because it is a beta. So if you do have suggestions on how some things could be changed around, leave a suggestion in the comments below because the SFO team does check out these videos in an effort to gauge viewer interest. This video will focus on Kislev, which has 3 different legendary lords, and as always, if you're used to SFO Grimhammer 2, then you'll know how this is going to work. This first patch is going to focus around quality of life changes for Kislev as a whole, and eventually we'll start getting some patches which will focus on a full rework, and then obviously some changes to each of the legendary lords to make them much more unique. So let's start off with control. You see, control affects enemy melee defense, construction cost province-wide, and attrition resistance when in own territory faction-wide. This is something that is affecting all the different races with all their own bonuses, but this is specifically focusing on that of Kislev, which is going to give you a bit more of a stylized thing here. With construction costs being reduced, it's going to help a lot more, especially if you're just trying to get the motherland sorted as fast as possible, and with how the campaign is currently centered, this is a good idea. Ports for Kislevite factions will increase campaign movement range and also line of sight within those regions, which pairs up nicely with the bonuses to campaign movement within your own territories that you get from the generic changes, so you're able to defend your territories at a much quicker pace. You can have your armies patrolling around, stopping any rifts spawning, or maybe if you're playing in the harder difficulties and player bias is coming into effect, yeah, you're going to need to move around and defend your borders as fast as possible. The farm's building chain has now had a bit of a change. You see, recruitment cost reduction has been lowered, but changed to province-wide, so it's not really so much as a nerf as in more of a 50-50. However, in Tier 3, it also increases supporters gained, which is obviously very, very useful because when you're playing as Katerin or Kosteltin, you're not only dealing with the souls, but you're also dealing with the other faction. So now you get a little bit more of a boost. Keep in mind the AI also gets this, but if you can plan out your buildings well enough, you shouldn't really have too much of an issue, and you'll get those benefits very early on. The forest change has had their replenishment effect lowered, but once again changed to province-wide. This will be very beneficial for you, as that means that you've got your whole area where you'll be able to replenish your forces at a bit of a better rate. The Taverns Chain has had an increase to campaign movement range within the province, once again helping you keep mobile throughout your territories, which what I wanted to do was a lore-friendly Kislev playthrough where I'm not empire building, I'm just taking over the motherland and then having pretty much everything get thrown at me, and I realized that this did help quite a bit. And finally the markets chain. So this one has a bit of a negative but also a bonus. You see, as it gets better and better as you start tiering it up, it will reduce your control overall. However, you can get quite a lot of income bonuses just by going to the very top, and that works for all adjacent provinces. So what you want to do is build this in one of your capital cities and have all the other ones getting nicely buffed up to get more income. There's a few basic changes here to the resources, as you can see here with the vineyards, and it's nothing too noticeable at the very beginning, but you will start to notice it later on. Military buildings for Kislev have bonuses and also some negatives. What you will notice is that they'll have reduced growth outputs, which can be a bit of a clutch. Mind you, you still have the benefit of the plus 50 if you're not doing your taxes, so it shouldn't slow you down too much to tier up your buildings. And as you can see, they also bring in some rather interesting bonuses which affect all armies in province. This means that you can just get a lot more defensive and do a lot more damage, and obviously as Kislev, it's a very lore-friendly thing to do. Invocations have had some changes here and there, and you can see them on screen as I go through them. What you will notice is that they only work throughout your faction provinces, so you're not going to be able to get these benefits when you move too much outside. I've spoken to Venris about this, and he says it's more of the case of keeping Kislev more lore-friendly, where they're not really an expansionist, and when they do buckle down for a while. It does make a lot of sense. It might take a while for you to get used to, but after a while you will notice it, and it will make your defensive playthroughs a lot more fun. The same thing goes for the supporters. As you start getting those bonuses, you will notice that it's mostly focused around some stuff around construction, leadership, vigor loss reduction, but it's all within your territories. However, this doesn't stop you from expanding. I must stress that out very heavily because it does benefit you too. With a high control as you start progressing through it, it means that you'll start taking territories and having decent amount of control as it stands. So nothing is really stopping you from expanding, but you're just better in a defensive way. There have been some minor changes towards commandments, which you can see on screen right now as I cycle through them. They're nothing too big, it's just to keep everything themed and balanced with all the changes because every race in Warhammer 3 is getting changes to their commandments to keep everything in line with everything coming into effect in the Land of Wealth patch. Kislevite Atamans will also have some minor changes when it comes to their traits, but you'll notice that as you start progressing and you start getting all the different effects kicking in and all that, it's done in such a way that it integrates really well with what the mechanic actually is, so you won't notice too much of a change, but the change is there. So there are no big changes when it comes to faction effects and lord effects. However, there are a few things, like say for example, there's nothing here for Katarine when it comes to campaign, but when it comes to her trait, the upkeep reduction has changed to 40% down from 50%, these are for the Ice Guard, and finally miscast chance has changed to 25% down from 50%. This might seem like nerfs, but in reality she's quite powerful, and given how money works with SFO, especially since now we don't have to deal with supply line costs, it doesn't really become noticeable. When it comes to Konstantin, we do have a few changes when it comes to his campaign effects. For example, now his relationship with the Ice Court is -50 instead of -40. The Patriarch Ward Safe effect has been changed to +10%, down from +20%. And finally, unit buffs effects have been replaced with Fanatics of Orthodoxy. This gives them more melee attack and leadership whilst in own territory, but it does lower their melee defense. It's more of the case of making everyone a fanatic, or better yet said, a flagellant, where they're going to just go in and try and do as much damage as possible, but they will take a lot more damage for that. Personally, I quite like it because it makes you much more aggressive with Konstantin, which is something that I feel should have always been the case. When it comes to Boris, well, there's a few changes. Firstly, when it goes to the campaign effects, you now have a bigger bonus to relations with your daughter Katarine, so you have +50 now, up from +30. This is cool because obviously you know the whole diplomacy aspect, and well, she's your daughter. Anyways, moving on, when it goes to his own trait, so his Lord effects, leadership and melee attack bonuses against Chaos has been changed to +5, down from +7 and +9, because it just felt a bit too strong. And the next change is another bit of a nerf, which is Bear Rider's upkeep reduction effect changed to -40%, down from 50%. Yes, again, it's a nerf, but remember, like I said, you are not dealing with supply lines, so you're not really going to notice this. Now, there's also been a few changes when it comes to technologies, but I'm not going to go through everything because it's always best to let you guys discover something at least, because well, if we go over everything, it just ruins the fun. But technologies have been buffed, but they only work within own territory, again keeping with the whole idea of Kislev being a more defensive faction. Now, before we end this video, what I want to do is I want to talk about my own personal experience from playing with SFO's new changes to Kislev and how I feel the campaign now works. I must say it feels a lot more lore-friendly to me, at least, having grown up with Warhammer Fantasy Tabletop since, well, yeah, loads of years. I don't even want to think about that nowadays. But Kislev has always struck me in lore to be more defensively focused, and now you get that feel. You're still able to empire build. This is very important. Like, you can still empire build without too much of an issue. In fact, it could be easy to say that you will get a lot of benefits from empire building, but if you want to stay in a small location, if you want to have like a roleplay campaign, this works out really well. You are more than able to sit in the motherland, only controlling the Kislevite territories and just progressing through your campaign and then deciding where you want to strike out, or if you want to do the rifts, if you are playing the rift campaign, that's perfectly fine. You're able to work around and tailor it for a more lore-friendly experience. This is, again, how I've been feeling it. And if you want a fun challenge, what I would say is, as soon as you take over the motherland, which doesn't really take that long, depending obviously on the difficulty that you're playing, then start declaring war on all the Chaos factions and anything around the vicinity that you want gone, because it's quite interesting seeing them come to you and getting shredded if you have enough bonuses going around, because if you can plan out your buildings really, really well, yeah, you can get a lot of bonuses. I must say, this was really, really fun. It's something that I hopefully will be streaming when I return to streaming in about a week or so, and I'm really enjoying it. SFO has done something really cool for something that was more focused around quality of life changes in my opinion, and then obviously we'll get the big reworks in the future. But with all that being said, if you have any suggestions regarding this, do leave them in the comments below, as obviously the SFO team does check them out. And remember that this goes into beta on June the 3rd. It's not that long now, so you can play a new patch and have some fun.